So I've never understood the proper balance between oversharing and complete secrecy. I've always been one or the other. As a kid, I kept everything to myself. I kept silent wherever I went. I was alone most of the time, but when I was with friends, I was usually in the background, just tagging along instead of playing an active role. But it wasn't until probably when I came into church. So I didn't grow up in any sort of religion. I started believing in God probably about 14. There was this girl in my art class who had reached out to me like through a letter, because apparently there were some guys at my table making fun of me. No, I didn't take it that way. I thought we're all just on the same level. We're all just kind of goofing around. I was more the quiet type, so I totally understood why it would seem like I might possibly have been offended. I didn't take it offensively or feel hurt or anything. But anyway, the girl reached out and kind of said like, hey, like, I'm sorry you were mistreated. I can't remember her exact words, but she shared with me a portion of the book she was reading called Email from God for Teens, and it was like a little page on forgiveness. I just thought the whole gesture was very sweet. It really kind of turned me on to the idea of Christianity, because this is probably one of my first face-to-face interactions with it. And to me at the time, it just seemed that Christianity was all about being kind to others, showing random acts of kindness. I was real big into that at the time, like Chicken Soup for the Soul, books, all that good stuff. So I ended up buying that book and read it for myself, and I really got into it. I really enjoyed what I was reading. I started looking for a church. I begged my mom, my parents, to go church hopping, and we eventually came upon our Pentecostal church where we attend today. So I was 15 at that time when I converted. Well, 15 to 16 as the conversion process kind of took place. It was about that time when I started realizing that it was just a very tender era of my life, that tender age. So I had just gone through puberty. Apparently 14 is late for guys. That was me. I learned things very late. So just dealing with that, and I never had the talk. We had sexual education in class, but it's just kind of the basics. And plus with as much extreme social anxiety as I had, like being so quiet, I don't know. I mean, I passed the class, but it's more like you stick things into your short-term memory, and it's a bunch of scientific names. Like I could name like all like the parts of the parts, but as far as how to use them, that just didn't really register, because it scared me. I was so frightened. And I should mention, I was not diagnosed with anything until my 30s. Looking back now, I could see symptoms of my OCD and my ADHD, just being so like scared of everything. And I do suspect autism as well. I haven't been able to achieve a diagnosis at this point, but I have been searching, and I have been researching too. So it makes sense. If you looking back at all of my history, everything's like, yeah. All the social cues I missed. So I was very afraid. I remember being more afraid of men. It's androphobia, I think it's called, the fear of men. I would gravitate toward girls, and only the ones who would reach out to me first. I was not outgoing in the slightest at that time. I was always different, always the odd one out, usually alone. I was a mama's boy, very sheltered. Like even before I got into the church scene, I always liked spending time at home, didn't get out much. And now things became confusing when puberty happened, because now I didn't have anyone to talk to about what I was going through. And apparently what I was going through was very different than what other guys were going through. Normally, a man would be, or a boy going through puberty would be drawn to the girls and start thinking of certain ways toward them. That's the birds and the bees. But for me, it was different. I didn't go through that phase. Like to me, suddenly it was the boys. that caught my attention. And, not knowing anything about anything, I didn't think anything of it. I would catch myself staring or thinking of ways that were a bit much. If you catch my drift, those hormones, when they first hit your brain at that age, you think some crazy thoughts about certain others that you like, that you think are attractive. Now, it wasn't until I think it was about 15. So I went through puberty at 14, and then at 15, brand new into the church scene, I came to school on the bus one morning. It's like 7 a.m. There was a group of these Baptist ladies handing out tracts on the topic of homosexuality. I had no idea what that was up until that point. I had heard the term gay, and I would even heard people use that as a slur, but I didn't realize like it had an actual meaning. So through reading the tract, when I accepted it and said, "Oh, thanks," and I just thought it was cool that they're spreading the gospel, something I was just very new to. And I didn't know anything about different denominations. Like, everything's just the same to me at this point. So I read through it, and very quickly I began to realize that the feelings that I was having or experiencing toward boys was exactly what they were talking about. So it took me back. I'm like, oh, well, we can't have that. I'm Christian now. We're not going to do that. Well, yeah. Next thing I know, I became an addict to the internet, and it's just, I couldn't get myself to stop, and it was always men. And of course, with undiagnosed OCD, like being a perfectionist, that ate away at me, because I was constantly feeling that shame and that regret. I would fall at the side of my bed like every night, just sobbing and trying to get it right. And I couldn't talk to anybody about any of this. Now, as I grew in my beliefs, I think in my senior year, so when I was 17, I made the bold choice to start sharing my testimony of being delivered from homosexuality. And I started telling people that, like, in my very shy way, saying I was completely straight now, completely heterosexual, but meanwhile, every night, internet, or almost every night, I should say, looking at men. But the way I saw it is that after I told God I was sorry, my past is just erased. Like, what I did the night before, it was just gone. It's like it never happened. That was the way I understood things. Yeah, that's not how that works. It's a very immature way of looking at things. But at the time, no idea. So when I was 18 and got into Bible college, and I went alone, where I didn't know anybody. I was like a 5-hour drive away from home. This was in 2005. That's when everything started hitting me. And I didn't know how to function with God and also with others. I guess the only way I knew how to survive was to, do the opposite of what I'd always done, was to keep in complete secrecy. Well, now I was going to be completely open about everything. At this time, I was still very, very shy, very socially anxious. So I resorted to social media. It was still pretty early, the early years of social media, the mid-2000s. What would I use? I think Everyone's Connected was probably one of the sites. A Live Journal was another one. And we gradually started getting into Facebook. Oh, MySpace. MySpace was probably the big one. And I would share everything. I would write it out, these very long blogs. I would write messages to people in very extreme detail, grotesque detail, even if it was inappropriate, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. As I didn't understand that I didn't understand that was not okay. There is such a thing as boundaries. I didn't realize what boundaries were, and probably till I hit my 30s, to be honest. So, of course, that turned into a lot of drama. That brought me a lot of drama, a lot of criticism. I've just always noticed this, that when you're abnormal, and by abnormal I mean different from that which is common, because most people are very similar. So when I consider myself abnormal, I mean that I can't relate to the majority of people in this world, and the majority of people can't relate to me. So that's what I mean if you ever catch me saying I'm not normal, abnormal. So the thing about being abnormal is that when you share things, people are more likely to, well, judge you, really, because they don't understand and they can respond only with what they know. And like on the topic of homosexuality, like there's a very select few verses in the Bible that are believed to be speaking of such, so people will throw those at you, and they're not exactly encouraging. It's mainly like, oh, if you do this, you're gonna die. You deserve death. The blood will be on your head. So that's the kind of environment that I succumbed to. It probably wasn't until 2014, because I went through this whole roller coaster of extremes. It was like, oh, I'm gay, and then, oh, I'm straight, and then, oh, it was always the extremes, but it always being bombarded by all sorts of advice, all sorts of criticism, and never actually having someone to come beside me and actually hear my story or hear my experiences from the inside. I was always alone. I throw my words out there on the internet because that was the only platform or the only place that I felt safe, that I felt heard. But it usually did more damage than healing. So it wasn't until about 2014 when I reached this sort of a balance where I didn't want to take any sort of label. I would just live, do the best I can according to my beliefs, and really make my relationship with God my own. And a lot of that did involve having to go on my own path. There were certain beliefs that I could no longer subscribe to. My walk with God started looking different at that point. Now, all these years, I've been single. Like, I've never been with a man. I've never been with anyone. And I didn't really mind that. I didn't mind singleness in my late teens and 20s because the majority of people, well, in my social circle, my age, were also single. It made sense. There were always people I could at least hang out with, like even if we weren't close. But as I started getting into the mid-20s and late 20s, and more people were starting to settle down and they get married, they have kids, the fewer options I would have to get out, to be in that same boat of singleness. And now that I am in my late 30s, it's very tough. Being almost 40 is now the majority of people in my social circle my age have long been married. Most of them 10 plus years. Actually, some even have children who are getting married and having children now. Some people my age and even younger are grandparents right now. And me, I'm just like, I don't even know what it's like to go on a date. I don't know what kissing is like. I don't know what falling in love is like. I don't know what that is. I don't understand all those things. It's a very different dynamic. I often feel out of place. And it's not that people purposely put me out of there. It's just we naturally don't have that much in common. We don't have the same lifestyle in common. Because they have the married life and the parental life, and I just have like this bachelor life, which is essentially the same life I've had my whole life. It's kind of like living a child's life in an adult's world. And it dawned on me that our organization is focused on families and couples, married couples. There isn't much of a place, at least not right now, that I'm aware of, for singles who are about 35 plus age. I see there's been some talk, because there are people out there in my situation, like just being single at this age in general. That's kind of what I'm leaning toward, just marinating in my singleness and finding others in that same boat as I'm not interested in being with anybody, giving my situation, because I have no idea what it's like to be attracted to a woman. I've never experienced that. And that definitely makes things even harder, because not only is it difficult just being single in general, well, now I don't really fit in with other singles, too many of them, because I can't relate to feeling attracted to the opposite sex. It's just kind of weird, because I don't want to, just to be transparent, it's like, it's hard for me to hang out with the same sex, because sometimes feelings happen. Now, I can control myself. There's no problem in that area, that if I feel attracted to a dude, I keep it to myself. I don't say anything. Back in the day, before I learned discretion, like, I would just blab it out, because it's that OCD, it's that urge, like, oh, I'm feeling this, I need to verbalize it. But you don't have to do that, because there's literally no reason to do that. And then I'm also uncomfortable at times hanging out with the opposite sex, because sometimes the feelings are coming toward me and I can't reciprocate, and it just makes things awkward for them. And so I just kind of dwell in the shallow, basically. I'm on shallow ground with most people. I don't feel I have a place of being able to be in a deeper relationship, even if it's strictly platonic. It's very difficult for me to find that space. I have very few people to confide in real life. So I usually tend to isolate. Everything I battle, I've always battled solo. I've kept my wars to myself. Well, I would talk about them on social media, because many of you have been connected with me for years and years. But still, even if I do talk about them online, it's like I still have to fight them alone. I've never had someone to just call up or text and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this right now, can you help me? I've always had to be my own encourager. There were so many times that I was discouraged to the point of wanting to end my life. Now, I spent probably a solid 10 years of my life suicidal. And then the next 10 years just wanting to, or just essentially just living for other people. Because it's kind of like a living suicide is what I thought of it as. Because I'm just like, I don't want to, I'm just going to patiently wait to die. And in the meantime, I'm just going to give myself to others. I'm going to be everyone else's slave, because I don't want to live my life anymore. But now I'm entering an era where I want to live like more of a bountiful life, more of a life of meaning, to treat myself with the self-respect that I deserve, that everyone deserves for themselves. Because I don't want it to be just all about me, and I don't want it to be all about other people. I want it to be that balance. That's what I'm trying to achieve as I'm about to enter into my 40s. But the struggle I have in dealing with what I deal with is that it's very, like, I seek friends, but I usually end up encountering law enforcement officers, so to speak, of religion. I see it happen so many times where I'll start sharing my experiences, because these are my experiences. This is something that affects my everyday life, and I've been dealing with this for 25 years and dealing with it almost exclusively alone. And still to this day, when I start sharing my life, if I ever do feel like it's the right moment to do so, things get very uncomfortable, more for the hearer than for the speaker. But then once I see the hearer is becoming uncomfortable, then I become uncomfortable, because I feed off of other people's energy, and then I start to just clam up and change the subject, because I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I have zero interest in that. But at the same time, I have to live. Like, I have to breathe. I'm waiting to exhale, as they say. But it's so hard when I start to talk and suddenly the person starts quoting scripture at me, or they get defensive. That happens to me all the time. People just get defensive. Instead of hearing me out, it's like, well, I don't agree with that. And they put their nose in the air, raise up against me, and like, well, I hope you get victory over that. And then kind of like they put up this boundary when I'm not even being offensive. I'm not attacking. I'm just sharing my experience, and I know my place. Like I'm not even after you. I'm just chilling, celibate. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just trying to breathe. It's hard to exist in this environment when others don't give you room to breathe. Of course, I've been praying about this for 25 years, almost every day. And it seems blessings, like a social blessing, it seems to come easy for people who are normal, people who are common, who deal with all the common things, just have like the average lives. And for someone like me who does not have an average life, like I don't get much. I get scraps. And I don't blame God for that at all. It's the way I see it, it's just the way things are. And that's why I'm venting here today, because there's no space, or there's very little space, I should say, because there are some. It's very, very few, very scarce, very rare, very hard to find. I don't get it often. And even when I do find it, it's at my age, people are busy, especially if they have families, jobs, careers. Priorities go to the family, and that's just the way it is. I think that's the way that it should be. Some random bachelor is not a priority. Like that's. So my story is not by any means unique. There are other people who are in my shoes. Now, of course, they left. They left God, left the church, and I completely understand that, because we all want to be where we're heard, like where we feel like we have a connection. I've been going this path, like I said, for 25 years, and I still feel like I don't want to leave. I have no interest in leaving. I've talked with others in my shoes, or others who are openly gay, and we can connect in some points, but there's still a vast difference, because this is my life. Like, I love the Christian life. This is for me. It's a passion for me, and I'm a live and let live kind of guy. A lot of people don't like that, but that's who I am. This is my path. I've do a lot of studying of the Bible every day. I've done some very deep studies for many years. This is my interest. This is what I'm into. One of my obsessions. And I have a lot of people in my situation, like they use this zeal, this passion to do all these things, to pray as hard as they can, or pray for hours, to study the Bible for so deeply, to really dedicate themselves to God as much as they can. Like a lot of people do that, like with the utmost zeal, in a way, essentially to gain a reward of like a cure from God for their sexuality, for lack of better terms. So they just utterly give themselves. And I think a lot of people out there tend to do that for other circumstances too. I don't think it's exclusive to our situations. But there comes a point when you realize that despite like all that exhaustive effort that we put into it, and we're still dealing with the same thing, then there's that temptation to feel like a failure, to feel ashamed. Now, I'm beyond that. I'm too old to be dealing with that now. The passion I do now is because it's a genuine passion. I'm not doing it to gain gems on my crown. I'm not doing it to gain praise. It's what I do. It's who I am. And now the month of June, Pride Month, has always been a very difficult month for me, because now both sides are in a heated argument with each other. They're arguing, they're screaming at each other. You get scripture screaming, you get obscenities, sometimes you get others, the side screaming other verses about mixed fabrics and eating shellfish, and like all the different arguments. There's so many different arguments. Meanwhile, folks like me, we just sitting here trying to stay sane and trying to stay out of it, because I still have to live my life. I'm just trying to live my life best I know how. I don't even like confrontation. I don't like screaming. I don't like arguments. I don't like getting involved into debates. And in the midst of all that, it's very isolating because you can't, it's very hard to reason with people when they're in that state of anger, because they're in their emotional part of the brain and it's hijacking their logical. And both sides, or all sides I should say, because there are more than two, but both sides can be equally offensive and damaging, do a lot of damage. And I don't like that. I don't like to be either of that. I want to be a person of peace. I want to create a safe space for both people to, like, I just want people who can calm down and have a calm, mild, like productive conversation about this. So I am a firm believer in that whatever you deal with, whatever your life experiences are, they should be validated. We should all have a place to be listened to and not judged, not condemned, criticized. A lot of us are just trying to survive. A lot of us are just trying to survive with what we know, with what we've been given. A lot of us are trying to figure out how to play the cards that life has dealt us, and that's outside of our power. Because a lot of these things that happen to us, that we experience, like, we didn't choose. Like, I didn't choose to be attracted to men. It just happened. And I didn't even know what homosexuality was, like, when it happened. I was just chilling. I was this sheltered little boy, this sheltered preteen, 14, just chilling. All of a sudden, I'm catching myself staring at dudes. And it wasn't until a year later that Baptist tract, it's like, hey, bruh, gay. Like, I didn't even know what gay was. Now, when it does come to judgment, and as far as playing a judge like in the court of law, the proper thing to do is always to hear both sides, or to hear all sides before passing a judgment. And when I say passing a judgment, I mean like determining like what to do in the situation, if it is in your hands to determine what to do, which it rarely is. But you always have to hear all sides, because there are different sides. And personally, I would love just to be heard, just to be given a space to breathe instead of asphyxiating. I'm dying here. Many of us, in whatever we're living, we're not interested in unsolicited advice from any side. We really just want to be included. That's ultimately what life is about, to find our place where we're included. And I think it is vital to realize that we live in a world of individuals, because there is a lot of generalizing going on. And I think it's very easy to judge a type of people based off of who shows up the loudest in social media or in the media, because usually the people who show up in the news are the ones who are the loudest, the ones who are the craziest. But there are a slew of people who are kind of like myself, just very quiet. We don't have much of a following. We're not in the limelight. We just live our lives in the quiet. Don't look at me. There are so many like little people out here like us in any situation who don't fit all the stereotypes of the labels. Realize that there are people out there who are just chilling. They're minding their business, trying to find their place. You know, in recent history, people just like me, you know, who are same-sex attracted but choose to be celibate, and like for whatever reason, just staying single and staying out of trouble. Even people like that, they were subject to criticism, state-sanctioned violence, criminalized, discriminated against. Some are subject to lobotomies, chemical castration, shock therapy, like just people like me who don't even participate in the act. People like me who preserve the virginity. Like, just the fact that there was an interaction in the brain toward the same sex. This is recent history. We're succumbed to that type of thing. Imprisoned. Is that really the type of world we want to perpetuate? So my plea is just listen. Just give people a space to listen, to be able to breathe. Give people a space to relax in without succumbing to the urge to spew out Bible verses that usually end up doing more harm than good. It depends on the situation. But when you give people a place to breathe and give people patience, a lot of healing can take place. And I think a lot of us would be surprised, like, how far just lending an ear can go.